Hey there everybody, Eric from Outer Limitless coming at you today with another video. Now in today's video, we're going to look at a product from OLight, OLamp, OLife, OKnife, all of the above. Here is the Fortitude. This is a cool, and I'd say mid-size fixed blade from Oknife. Now I did receive this from the people at OLife, so before we get too far, thank you very much to the people at OLife who did provide this for review. But yes, the Fortitude. Today, just kind of a first look and impression. Now, I've covered Oknife products in the past. I really do like Oknife in general. They've been doing a fantastic job. Their OEM, I believe, is Kaiser. I can't say for sure that is the case for the Fortitude, but if I had to guess, I would say most likely yes. Now, I have a very low serial number here, number 10, which is cool. Each and every Oknife coming with a serial number, and that's the case for most OLight products. But again, here, the Fortitude. And so if you've been watching my channel, you realize that for me, good quality fixed blade is absolutely the way to go, and I'm hoping that's going to be the case here with the Fortitude. And so when we get back, a first look and impression of this Oknife fixed blade. But with that said, I have a whole bunch to do and a whole bunch to share with you. And if you're interested in seeing a little bit more about what I'm about to get into, do me a favor, stay tuned. And so again, I would like to say thank you very much to the people at OLife who did provide this Oknife for review. And so now as we get into the Fortitude. So again, a nice fixed blade offering. Here you can see beautiful clip point design. This is in D2 tool steel, which I like just fine, and a nice G10 handle. Everything very nicely made, nice and tight to the tang of the knife. You'll notice full tang design, but the scales very tight, well done. Not any way of gap. I mean, very nicely machined, contoured very well. A little bit thin, but at the same time, fills out your hands nicely. And for and again, I'll call this a mid-size sort of belt knife, just perfect. The handle length, about perfect. Get some nice purchase, the ability to get up onto the spine with my thumb. You'll notice some subtle jimping there. Very nice. Now, they do not report the HRC rating, and I can tell you D2 typically in the 59 to 60 HRC range, I would say, roughly. And I have never had any problems with D2. It can sometimes be a little bit chippy. However, what I can definitely tell you is that I've also used D2 on my own personal design. So here's my T17. This is the .5S model, which just for a real quick comparison here, you can see the Fortitude being a little bit smaller, but my point of all of this is D2, when it is done well, is a fantastic steel for an outdoor wilderness blade, and I'm hoping that's what we're going to find here with the Fortitude. As we look at the grind, and I'm going to have to look a little more carefully, I don't think this is really hollow ground, but if it is, it's subtle. I would say it's either a flat grind on your primary bevel, or it is subtly hollow ground and then into a secondary bevel. Which here, if we take a look, and I get this into my gauge, this appears to be, as you look at the far left and right hand side, so that's your secondary bevel there, to be roughly around 22 degrees from what I can tell, which might be a little more broad than it would necessarily be ideal in my opinion, and that's probably also why your secondary grind ends up fairly thin. But that means you're going to have a little more meat behind the edge, and that should mean that it's going to be reasonably durable. So we'll see how this carves when we get it out for some field use in a future video. You have yourself a sharpening choil. So you can see nice, large, generous sharpening choil. Does a couple things. I mean, that's not really big enough for a finger choil, but massive in terms of a sharpening choil. But even at that, kind of adds a little bit of style and sort of separates the blade from the ricasso area and just buys it a little bit of style points. Now, I do like the fact that this is a saber grind. Saber ground knives are literally my favorite for general wilderness use, pretty much for the ability to use this to process firewood. That is definitely the thing. When you have a shoulder where that primary grind meets with the flat of the steel, that allows the knife, as it batons down and through the wood, to crack the wood open and not bind. A full flat grind can definitely bind in the wood, and it creates a lot of friction. So a saber grind, in my opinion, is superior for the outdoor wilderness use. Now, as we continue on towards the back end, you'll see here on the pommel end, it is fully wrapped in the G10, but you do have a little bit of an exposed pommel there, just a little bit, and that allows also for a lanyard hole. But the other thing I'm seeing about the Fortitude that I like, very comfortable for the reverse grip. You'll notice that it is well contoured and chamfered and rounded, and that is critical when you get your thumb over the top for the stabbing tasks. And on top of that, a nice, and I would say just pronounced finger choil there in the handle, and on top of that, a fairly large guard. So for stabbing, this is going to be a fantastic option in combination with that clip point. This is going to be a nice knife. I like the shape of this quite a bit, and I think right away it has a lot of very desirable design elements. Not to mention the fact that the green looks really good. Now, this is a Cerakote finish. For me and finishes, you can take it or leave it, and I typically like to leave it. However, where this is Cerakote, if this is like name brand Cerakote and it is done well, which it looks like it is, this might be a nice coating. Now, I don't like traction coatings, but this is smooth. It looks like it should wear well, and I don't even mind the hard use patina. So if this wears over time, no problem, as long as it doesn't pick up too much in the way of gunk and grime, and even more so, as long as it does not create friction and bind in the wood while I'm working. Bolt-on construction, we'll take this apart in a little bit. You can see this does seem to have star bits. That's cool. So I like that. Typically, you don't get star bits on handles, and to me, this is kind of just a little bit, a little bit of a departure from the norm, at least in US manufacturing. Typically, you get a hex bit. Here, you get the star bit. But again, definitely nice that these are bolt-on scales. And again, we'll take the scales off in just a little bit. For the sheath, this is a Kydex and seemingly well made. You'll notice the eyelet spacing here. It is pretty much standard spacing. You get a traditional style dots lock on the back, which is nice. So the dots clip. This does have a lock, which allows this to lock into place so it doesn't necessarily open on you. This is actually a fairly reasonable clip, and you'll notice that it is multi-position. So if you want, you could carry this knife scout style. Typically for me, I will rotate these clips 90 degrees, which allows me to put this on the strap of a pack. And at that point, I can rock the knife inverted on my shoulder on the weak side and allows me to insert the blade while it's on my shoulder. Now, there is absolutely no possible way this knife is going to come out. It has nice retention, virtually zero rattle on the sheath. So the Kydex is nicely made. I like it quite a bit. You'll notice at the top here, just a little ramp, which allows you to push it off. And usually when a sheath really shoots off like that, it has decent or better than decent, and in this case, very good retention. So here, positive click, no problem. A very nicely made, simple, yet effective little pancake style sheath. And they even remembered on the backside to put a little drainage hole, which again, not completely necessary, but that's helpful. And with D2 being and it's certainly not completely stainless, it can corrode, but with the coating and being a semi-stainless steel, a tool steel, this is going to perform well. It should be reasonably moisture resistant. So if you're in humid conditions or wet conditions, I don't see you having any problems with this. And in combination with the Kydex, as long as you don't freeze this and crack it or leave it in the sun and warp it, you shouldn't have too many problems. Kydex can be a little bit temperature sensitive if you're not careful, but all in all, a wonderful package with the Fortitude. And so now just the last few details to wrap up the Fortitude. So again, the knife, the sheath. Now here you can see just little user's manual, pretty straightforward, not a heck of a lot to it. Operation guide, don't know if you really need that, but it's here if you so choose. Couple different languages. This came nicely protected, had a little tip protector. You can see the case here, felt lined and form fit. Then the box itself. And the last thing about this is it did come with a patch. So the PVC Velcro patch here, the Fortitude, kind of neat, a little bear there, kind of nicely made, and just a nice little addition and attention to detail from Oknife. Now, just to wrap things up, some comparisons against knives that you may be more familiar with. Here you can see the SE4. Now, granted, a clip point design on the Fortitude, drop point on the SE4. In addition, full flat grind on the SE4 versus the saber grind, but at the same time in a very similar blade size class. With the one exception being, you do lose a little bit of the blade length on the SE4 to the finger choil. So very similar in overall length. Now, another knife that's really, this one here you can see is actually a special edition, but the Tops Tex Creek. A little more of that clip point design. This does have a bit of a recurve, a little less in terms of a recurve here on the Fortitude, and I feel like it does have just the ever so slightest little swoop back there, but barely. But again, you can see a little more similar. Now, in this case, you'll see this is a saber grind on the Tex Creek and very similar in overall length. Of course, on the Tex Creek, you have a lot more palm swell. So when you look at it actually in the sort of profile here, you can see the Tex Creek much thicker. So that gives you an indication of how thin the Fortitude really is. But at the same time, like I had mentioned before, feels really good in the hands. Now, some closer competition to Oknife. Here you can see Bestech. This is the head drawn. So Bestech really only with a couple of fixed blade knives in their lineup. But again here, sort of that clip point design, an unsharpened swedge jimping over the top, and not exactly in the same blade size class. You can see the head drawn being a little bit smaller, but similar in overall concept. Very thin, low profile. Comes with a low profile Kydex sheath, and again here in D2. So very similar in overall kind of concept, but again, you can see the Fortitude just a little bit larger. And a knife that actually really makes this look thick. This here is the Tops MPAT, and again, sort of similar-esque, where you end up with that saber grind, a clip point design, but the scales on the MPAT, this is very, very thin, very low profile. And again here, compared to the Fortitude, you can see the Fortitude with just some more thickness, especially through the middle of the handle where it flares out a little bit for the palm. So again, not direct apples and apples comparison by any means. Different steels, of course, US manufacturing here on the MPAT, but at the same time, some similarities and characteristics. And one last comparison, which is probably the closest overall, both in terms of the size of the knife, the shape, the general features, and the overall capabilities. This is the SOG Recondo, which I covered on my Outer Limitless 2 channel, but you'll notice here, just so many things about this are fairly similar. Overall thickness, very close. General handle length, close. The Recondo being a little bit longer. The blade shape, I would say, is fairly similar. And I love the overall blade concept. That unsharpened swedge, clip point design, saber ground, nice blade length. Again, a little bit longer here on the Recondo, but a very comparable option if you're interested in a knife like this. And so again, knives like the Fortitude, I naturally gravitate to for the overall construction, the outdoor hard use fixed blade mentality, I love. The general shape, I love. The blade shape and design, I greatly enjoy it. That saber grind, that just works for me very well. The handle geometry and ergonomics, perfect. Nice little ramp. I mean, everything about this working very well. And then you couple it with a quality sheath. The user's experience completely depends on your ability to carry the knife effectively. So if you get the knife right, but you get the sheath completely wrong, your user's experience is half of what it should be. And bottom line is, for me, I'm carrying the knife far more often than I'm actually using it. And if I can't carry it well, I don't want to have it with me. So all in all, the Fortitude, in my opinion, is a great option. Now, time will tell. I do have to get this out into the field for quality field use, and at that point we'll check it for the overall capabilities, the durability, the quality of the steel, and the general design. I would say geometry, the blade edge geometry, and its ability to perform work. So more to come in the future. And so again, I would like to say thank you very much to the people at OUTERLIMITLESS who did provide this knife for review. And for the rest of you, if you like this content, do me a favor, take a look at my Outer Limitless 2 channel, which is more on the tactical and firearm side of things. At this point, that channel is growing quickly. I have a ton of videos up there, so if you like what you see here on Outer Limitless, do me a favor and check me out on Outer Limitless 2. So all right, guys, thanks for stopping by. I hope you like what you saw. I hope you found it a little bit informative. If you like what you saw, please like, share, and subscribe. And as always, thanks for stopping by. Take care now. I'll see you soon.